Hey, Hokie Nation. This is the Hokie Nation podcast. I'm joined here with my co-host, Isaac Childress.
What's up, guys?
Isaac, in your opinion, what do you think about the season this year, 2024?
One word, and that is disappointing. Had huge expectations, and I bought into the hype only to be let down. What about
Right.
you, big dog?
Man, I agree. I think going in, I think this was one of the most highly anticipated seasons for
Yeah.
Virginia Tech football.
Oh, yeah.
We were, top of the country in returning guys, and just over the course of the season, things didn't turn our way.
Yeah.
And it didn't really shake out how we wanted it to, obviously,
Yeah.
Going 6-7, but that's Virginia Tech football for
That's
you.
Virginia Tech. Really, it had been such a long time. I felt like I hadn't felt this hype about a Virginia Tech season since probably the year after we went to the ACC championship. When we had Gerard and Isaiah and Cam, and we went to the ACC championship. We didn't win it that year, but that year, obviously, they had Deshaun Watson won the national title. So I thought, man, this Fuente's a fantastic hire. I was really excited. But this year it was just, man, I guess the reason that it was so disappointing is that, I'm watching these Reese's Bowl practices and I'm watching these, East-West Shrine Bowl practices, and man, our guys are standing out above everybody. We've got talent. We've got depth. And
I think Jalen Lane, man, at the Senior Bowl practices has really been impressing me.
He's been
him, Peoples,
APR.
All of them are really standing out. Dorian Strong
I've seen several tweets about him. They've been talking highly of Quan Felton. He went to the John Gruden mini camp, and Gruden had nothing but good things to say about him. And to think that he only had 300 receiving yards is, you wonder what went wrong, just huge disappointment. But, talking about the disappointing season, what are your three things that you think most held back this Virginia Tech football team? Because we see the talent.
Yeah, definitely.
What are the three biggest things, in your opinion, that you think held this team back?
Man, one of the things that I immediately think of is during the Vandy game, the double zeros on the field.
Oh, my gosh. Don't get me started.
That is, for one, the number 0 came into college football pretty recent. Yes. So it stands out, in my opinion.
It does.
So when you're on the field with two number zeros, I don't know if that was a coaching issue. First game of the year, you're still figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
But that just can't happen. And, it really goes to the coaching, I think.
It does.
I'm sure we'll learn from it. But game one, that was a momentum swing in that game.
And it was, because that led to a field goal that, it sent us to overtime where we lost.
Right. So. Another thing I would say would be our quarterback situation.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, I'm a Kyron Jones fan. I really trust him, to lead our team, and he was doing very well.
He was.
Before he got injured and all that stuff started happening. But when we put Schlee in, he really impressed me. I don't think he's our starter. I think Kyron Jones earned it.
Yep.
His physical ability. But when Schlee was doing good, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was playing good. I remember, a couple games we would put Pop in.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of both of them.
Yeah.
But the going back and forth, and a quarterback has to find his rhythm, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And when he was balling, we would take him out, ruin his rhythm.
Yeah.
And then we started Pop. He did incredible in the UVA game. And then we go to the Mayo Bowl, and he looked like a deer in headlights.
Yeah.
And then you put Schlee in, he gets momentum, we score, and that's just kind of something that's the second thing I noticed. Just going back and forth. Obviously our starting quarterback got hurt. But
Schlee was definitely a veteran presence. I agree. Pop, I think it was good to get him some of that experience. I thought that starting him against UVA, I thought that was a good decision, because UVA was, they're UVA. Their defense was terrible. Their secondary was terrible, and Pop did amazing things. But when you go up against these really talented defenses like Duke, like Minnesota, And, you need a guy who can stay poised
Definitely.
and who can lead the team. And
Definitely.
I felt like Pop, in the long run, it might be a good thing, but I felt like it really just kind of flushed the season down the toilet. When we had a chance to salvage it, that really hurt us too. I felt like the player personnel, a lot of the decisions that them coaches made on who to play, how much to play them,
Right.
It didn't make sense.
Right.
And I thought that hurt us bad.
Definitely.
It really did.
Just the last thing that comes to mind is, I hate to say it, but our secondary. I love our secondary. We have some dogs that fly around the field.
Yeah.
Quick, physical. But a lot of times in games, there's blown coverages.
There was.
And they would get behind our coverage. I can think of in the Miami game when we let the middle of the field wide open. And I feel like we would just let guys get behind our coverage.
Yeah.
And that's something that just cannot happen. And with Mansour Delane, he's a dog. I know he transferred out.
Yep.
But there's a lot of times he would get picked on.
Yeah, he would. I mean, the Vandy and the Syracuse games, especially, they stand out to me. I mean, there was 2 or 3 times it was just like they were going at him all game.
Definitely.
And I feel like almost, I don't know what you think, but I feel like a lot of times he was going for that big play, going for that interception. I remember one time in Syracuse specifically, he went for that interception. And that guy he caught the ball, turned around, and it was one-on-one. It was ISO because we sent the full package.
Yeah.
Mansour went for the pick. That one guy caught the ball, took it to the house, and, we lost that game.
Exactly. And that was a game-changing play.
It was. That gave them all the momentum because it was I think it was like a 60 or 70-yard play. So not only was it, a touchdown given up, they took no time off the clock.
Right.
And that's what really killed Tech. If you could have made them march down, we would have won that game. We was up 17. But, yeah, I agree with you, man. That was a problem. Safeties let guys get behind them. Corners, I feel like Strong played really well, but I feel like you said, Delane had a tendency of getting picked on because he tried going for the big plays, and sometimes you get it, but when you don't, cost your whole team.
I agree, man. In your opinion, what do you think the 3 downfalls of this season?
The 3 downfalls of this season, in no particular order. First off, I'm going to say our strength and conditioning program. We addressed that with the firing of Dwight Galt, but I felt like you look at our guys, and a lot of guys, they were fatigued out there, and I felt like a lot of times our injuries, small little knick-knack injuries, lasted way longer than they ever should have. You look at our kick returner. We had Tucker Holloway, an all-ACC returner, who was predicted to be honorable mention All-American punt returner this year. Gets a little nicked up in summer practice, and the Vandy game that you talked about. You look at this. If we would have had Tucker Holloway this entire season, this is a 3-game swing. The Vandy game, you talk about the double zeros. Well, one of those double zeros, Ollie Jennings, punt return.
Yeah.
If it would have been number 11 and 0, that would have been a punt return.
Yeah.
Never field goal. We win that game.
Right.
Then you look on to the Rutgers game. Guess what happened? We put Jay Lane back there because we say we're not putting number 0 back there ever again.
Right.
Guess what happens? Jay Lane, we traded the couple 3-and-outs with the Rutgers. Jay Lane, I love the guy, but he just made an honest mistake. He fumbled the ball within the red zone, gave Rutgers the ball in the red zone. They had no momentum going at all. Rutgers scored their first touchdown. That was a 7-point swing, and we get that 7-point swing. We beat the Rutgers by 4 points. And then that means we go into the Miami game undefeated.
Right.
Think about that.
Right.
We go into that game 5-0, and I don't know. What's your thought? You think that do you think that they give a 4-0 Virginia Tech team that call? Because I
definitely don't. Looking at our schedule, we'll get into it with the season recap. But you go into Miami, like Isaac said, undefeated. We could possibly be ranked in that situation.
Yep.
And it's not an unranked going against a number 7.
Yeah.
It's a heavyweight battle.
It is.
And then in that game, calls can get shifted.
Yeah.
The tides can turn, and you can't change the past. We can just armchair quarterback all day long.
Yeah.
But that's at the bottom, at the end of the day, that's the way it could have been.
Yeah, again, like I said, I definitely think that call wouldn't have, I mean, I can't say for sure, but I don't think that they would have overturned that call had Virginia Tech been undefeated. But me and like many other fans think the ACC thought that we've got to put all our eggs in the Miami basket here, which ended up hurting them in the end. But then second, I'm going to say that our defensive breakdowns, our collapses late in games. Nate talked a little bit about it earlier. The Syracuse game, we blew a 17-point lead that game. We had Schley starting, and he played great. And we go up, we're up 17, and just the second half, Syracuse pours it on us. You got the Vandy game. We finally get the lead. Kyron Drones, we come out a little bit, slow, and in that third quarter, Kyron Drones is going off. And then we got to get one stop in the fourth quarter, and we can't do it. We go to overtime. We got to get a stop. We can't do it. Rutgers, we go, and we've got to get a stop. And what do? They drive all the way down the field, kick a field goal. Duke, we got to get one stop. What do? Well, they don't score, but we're down by 3. And what do? They go, and they hadn't ran the ball well all night. They run the ball all the way down to their red zone. Thankfully, luckily, we go and we force a fumble down there. But still, what hurt us the most was the time ran off the clock. You look at 3 or 4 games this year, and same thing with Miami. You look at, so many games this year, you look at and you say, my gosh, if this team could have bought a fourth quarter stop,
exactly,
we could have been a 10-2 team.
And that's football.
That's
That's bottom end of the day. That's what it comes down to.
And that also can be looked back at strength and conditioning too. But again, that's maybe another reason why Marv got fired. And then thirdly, I think that our offensive line. I thought we had some bright spots, man. I felt like Chaplin, and I thought the Moore brothers were both. I thought they were very solid. I thought Brody Meadows and John. I thought we had 5 very solid offensive linemen this year. But and I thought Leif Gannon played okay before he got hurt. But I look at almost the player management. You look at that Old Dominion game, and you've got the tweaking of Xavier Chaplin. Xavier goes down with a pregame injury in warmups. He rolled up his ankle or rolled up his leg. And Johnny Garrett goes in there, man, and he balls out. Now, given it's Old Dominion. But think about this right here, Nate. If you watch Johnny Garrett ball out in Old Dominion, because Parker Clements had already been struggling. And you decide, all right, we're going into the Rutgers game. We're going to start Xavier on the left side and Johnny on the right side. We all know that famous play of Kyron getting stepped on by Parker Clements and throwing it back, where Kyron got hurt. Guess who gave up Parker Clements?
Parker Clements.
If you start Johnny Garrett right there, does Kyron ever get hurt?
And I think that's the start of the Johnny Garrett legacy, I want to say. But our offensive line definitely struggled. And, everybody, well, in my opinion, Parker Clements, if that's all we had, that's cool. But, and guys, he went up against some dogs. But he struggled. And, Chaplin was struggling with injuries. And that really, and then you look at your offensive line room and you don't have 5 solid guys that have played together, that have experience. And you cannot win if your offensive line isn't on the same page.
No, you can't. And again, it goes back to, I felt like we also had a depth problem on the tackles. And, you go back here and you look at the past 2 transfer portals, Clayton Frady and Montavious Cunningham. How many starts have those guys got combined? None. We have been subpar in the offensive line transfer portal. We haven't been recruiting our guys. And then guess what? When things like this happen, when injuries happen, you need depth. You need depth.
Gotta have it.
Listen, line is, me and you played line. It's the most physical spot on the field. The
Yeah.
offensive line is the only position on the field that is guaranteed contact 100% of
That's right.
plays. You're going to have wear and tear. There's going to be times when you wake up and your knees feel like you can't even walk.
Yeah.
But that's called offensive line,
Right.
and that's why you need bodies. You need guys to be able to step in there.
Definitely.
But
And
I think those are the three.
Right.
You go ahead.
All I was going to say is, you look at Ohio State.
Yeah.
You look at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
They can run the football.
Mm-hmm.
They followed the big boys up front.
Yes.
And that took them to the promised land.
Exactly.
But,
Exactly.
with our struggles, I think that's what held us back. I
Yeah.
think that's what stopped a big play from happening.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Tootin was able to find holes and he did what he could.
Yeah.
But another thing that I noticed this year is we were going a lot of east to west.
Yeah.
East to west. When you have to go north and south, you have to be aggressive. You got to take big shots downfield. We were lucky on, jet sweeps, F tosses to Tootin, even the reverse game.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times on third down, we would look east to west instead of going north to south. And you look at the most dominant teams, like I hate to bring up Ohio State again, but they saw, where they were weak on defense, and they would get it to their playmakers downfield.
And you look at teams like Ohio State, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
How many? I mean, especially Notre Dame. How many guys were backups in that national championship game?
Right.
And because here's the thing, we could sit here all day and say, oh well, Chaplin kind of was dealing with some injuries, and every team is going to deal with injuries.
Exactly.
But it's preparing to have the depth because offensive line, you guys are just. That's why every one of them has these big old knee braces on. These guys are physical. They're mean. They're going to get nicked up. They're going to get hurt. You have got to have bodies. You've got to have depth. And I just feel like we have not had those key depth pieces, honestly, since Vance Vice has left. And, that guy he's a heck of a line coach. And I miss him, but I'll tell you what, I'm excited about Matt Moore. We'll get into that later. But
Me too.
I think that, again, I think that the line definitely had, a crucial part in this season. I felt like it just kind of knocked off our passing scheme. We never really got in rhythm, and our run game. Thankfully we had a guy like Bashaw Tootin who, was fast as, just as all get out.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be lucky like that every year. So I think that Hogs is,
And it's next man up mentality.
It is.
You got to be prepared. That goes for any position, but especially the offensive line. When you go from a high school to college level, it's different.
Yeah.
The physicality, the speed, the strength is just different, and nothing can prepare you for it but playing.
Yeah.
I think the more experience you get on offensive line will lead you to be great.
Yep.
Because if you're just a guy that fills in there, here and there, you don't get the same looks up front. You're not used to what, high-level college defenses can throw at you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's just get into our season recap.
Yeah, let's get into it, man.
So, first game, Vandy. Oh, it breaks my heart, man.
I hate talking about it still.
But the one good thing, the uniforms.
Dude, so sweet. I love them things.
I'm a huge uniform guy.
Yeah.
I just always liked them. I love what we did with the orange on the number on the side. And we took away the kind of the V-neck deal that we had going on.
Wasn't a fan of that.
We went to Nashville looking fresh. But
we did. And that was just, I always think you got to at least look the part. And I'll tell you what, we looked the part. We went out there. We had the Mike Vick, jerseys, and man,
old school.
They were sweet. I like that, the Hokie Stone numbers.
Yes.
I thought those were sweet.
Yeah.
Still wish we would bring out the black jerseys that we had at Battle at Bristol and every now and then. But
I love those.
That was a cool thing seeing that. I hate that season didn't match up with the new jerseys, but the new jerseys, they were sweet.
They were. But I think we weren't prepared for their talent.
Yeah.
I don't think we went into, this Vanderbilt game knowing what they had to offer.
Yeah.
They had a lot of guys coming in. Pavia, their running back, number 28, he was all over the field. He's a beast. And number 3, he just dominated. And
Yeah.
I just don't think we were ready to play that Vanderbilt team. And that set our season up for failure.
Yep.
We're the most high anticipated Virginia Tech team going in and losing on the road.
Yep.
And that kills your momentum.
It does.
And another thing is, I think that's a tough spot to put Schlee in.
Yeah.
In overtime, expect him to make a play.
Yep.
I don't want to say Kyron Jones gave up, but I don't know what was going on, but that's tough to put your backup in to make a play at the end of the game.
Yeah, it is. I felt like we go into that Vandy game, and plain out, they smacked us in the mouth.
Yeah.
It was an experienced roster, and it was an experienced coaching staff. They have Jerry Kill, a guy who was with the Hokies at some point, and you got Diego Pavia, a guy who has been there, who has done that. Last year, before he went to Vandy, he was known as the upset guy. He went and he beat an Auburn team.
Yeah.
As a non-Power 5 team guy, he went into Auburn and beat an SEC team. And, he's a guy who he's experienced. He's a leader. He's tough. He's gritty. And, you look and you wonder. I remember looking before, and, Sam Brumfield was talking about him because they were interviewed. Sam Brumfield, our middle linebacker, had played Pavia when they were at JUCO.
Oh, wow.
And they played together, and he said, man, that guy is one gritty guy. He said he's a great player, and he will put his head down and run you over. He will throw the ball, and he's a very veteran guy.
Yeah.
And, I'm thinking, this guy's just talking him up. We're going to smack Vandy.
Yeah.
Vandy don't, and
that's what we all thought.
And I think that's what a lot of our players thought. And they smacked us in the mouth. And, because I'm thinking at the beginning of the year, I'll be honest, I thought that was a lockdown win.
Me too.
I thought we were going to start the season off 3-0 at minimum. I knew the Rutgers game would be tough.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking we got a chance. We are going to be. I thought that it was just as much as of a lockdown of a win as Old Dominion was. As bad as I hate to say it.
And I think that's what we all thought. But
Yep.
that just, starting the season off 0-1, you let pretty much everybody down. And that's just a tough way to start the season.
It is, man.
But going into the Marshall game, I think Jalen Lane emerges as a punt returner.
Yeah.
I think he really did good. Our offense was explosive. Drones had a rushing TD and a pass to Felton. That's a good way to get, our momentum shifted and, in the right direction.
Yeah, I went to that Marshall game, and, I thought that, after the Vandy game, I was a little bit worried.
Yeah.
Because Marshall, Coach Huff has done a heck of a job down there at Marshall, and he really built that program. Still can't believe they let him walk away to Southern Miss.
Right.
But we go to that game, and, I was there at that game, and you just felt like the energy was depleted from not only the crowd, but on the stands as well. I remember that punt return by Jay Lane. It was right there in front of me. Jay Lane caught that ball, and you're thinking, is he not going to fair catch this thing? I'm thinking he's going to get rocked. He goes, and that guy, I'm sure he's thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to make the ESPN top 10. I'm going to smoke this guy. Jay Lane just takes one quick little step. That guy goes right by him, and then he just, that is one thing about Jay Lane. He will catch a ball in traffic, and he will try and return that thing. He don't
That's
care.
Right.
He's
got big playability.
He does got big playability. He's got that breakaway speed.
Definitely.
But I'll be honest. I watched that Marshall win, and I still, watching that game and being at that game, still, it took a long time for our offense to get going.
Yeah.
That first quarter, I could be wrong, but I think that nobody had scored yet. And I think Jay Lane was the first guy to score. Then I think we get a field goal. But I just felt like we were still hung up on that Vandy loss, which just goes to show you how crucial that week 1 loss was to us. I felt like we had no rhythm. On the offensive side of the ball. Felt like defense played pretty good that game. But again, just think that we were still shell-shocked.
I agree.
I think we were definitely shell shocked, but it was a good win nonetheless because Marshall ended up playing in the conference championship.
Yep.
So I know that's an overlooked win by a lot of people, but
it was a very chippy game.
It was a chippy game.
They would push to the sideline and they'd be smack talking. I'm sure a lot of them guys know each other.
Oh yeah.
And that's just kind of a Appalachian powerhouse. Former powerhouse.
Yeah.
Very chippy game.
Yeah.
But moving on to ODU, game 3. Drones really proved his dual threat ability.
Yeah.
I remember when he took that one down the sideline and he just stiff-armed that man, put a Derrick Henry on him.
Buried him right there on live on television, committed a crime.
Oh, that was in Tune steps up with 2 TDs.
Yeah.
And our unsung hero, I think, John Love.
Oh, man.
3 field goals.
I think John Love, that guy's, we take him for granted because he was 100% on field goals and 88%. 100% on extra points, 88% on field goals, but we tried some long field goals with him. And he made one at the Mayo Bowl.
He did.
I think it was a program record.
I want to say 50.
Something like that.
Maybe closer to 60.
Yeah. Or wasn't it a 61-yard field goal? I'd have to look.
I believe it was in the 60s. We'll fact check that.
Well, let me look that up. But no.
I think John Love was definitely the unsung hero.
Yes.
You have to have a good kicker, especially, when you can't stick it in. Got to kick a field goal.
Yeah.
And I definitely think he stepped up for us.
I think that another guy who I felt like really had a really good game, Jalen Lane. Jalen Lane came to that game. And, you had heard some chatter. I remember listening to the week before, Jay Lane was a little bit shaken up after that Marshall game. And, I think he caught that ball, took it to the house. I think he opened up the game with 2 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. He got the first 2 touchdowns, and man, I'm thinking, man, this Jay Lane guy.
He was
legit, and he that was his best game of the year. I think he had 106 receiving yards. It was his season best. Unfortunately, felt like he should have broken 100 several more times, but he was on the game. And then Johnny Garrett. I remember seeing old Andy Bitter tweet out, Xavier Chaplin is down, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, this is terrible. Then we got Johnny Garrett. Johnny Garrett ain't even got his name. You remember?
Right. Yeah.
He didn't even have his name on the back of his jersey. Just
nobody knew who he was.
Nobody knew who he was. He comes in there and he does a phenomenal job. He steps up to the plate big time, and
he earned a spot.
He made several key blocks. Later on throughout that year, he was a rotational guy after that because he played so well. So, after the Old Dominion game, I finally felt like our offense had gotten that rhythm. It was a 60-yard field goal.
Oh, wow.
60-yard field goal. Okay. Just had to confirm that real quick. But no, I felt like that Old Dominion game finally started feeling like a little bit more like Tech football, what we were hoping for.
Definitely.
Stalled out a little bit, but hey, that Old Dominion, I'll never forget, because I'll be honest, I was a little bit worried because you never forget Brent Pry's first game as a Hokie. Goes to Old Dominion.
That's right.
And they lose.
Yep.
And, you get upset. Grant Wells throws a bunch of late picks.
Yep.
The coaches get stuck in the elevator. It is a nightmare
it's a mess.
down there.
I remember that.
So it was good to get a win. I remember after that week, I'm thinking, hey, we can take care of business out here at Rutgers. We still have a chance to salvage the season.
Right. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, you're good. Because Rutgers had played good those 2 weeks too.
Yeah.
Vandy had played good those 2 weeks. So I'm thinking, hey, maybe Vandy's actually not that bad.
Right. And that leads us to the Rutgers game. And, looking back on it, I think we just got our physicality wasn't up to par.
No.
I think they were much more physical. Their 2 running backs, they kept them fresh.
Yeah.
Number 5, and I'm not familiar on the other number, but they just kept them fresh. Running the football. They stuck to their game plan, and they held the ball for 40 minutes. They had 40 minutes of possession time.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that we can win like that.
No, and a lot of people, they were super hyped looking at the Miami game. And honestly, at the beginning of the year, I picked Tech to lose to this Rutgers game. I thought that we had a very good shot at overlooking Rutgers and putting their eyes on Miami. And I thought that this was a trap game.
Yeah.
And we go into the Rutgers, and Rutgers, I love their coach, Greg Schiano. He's done a heck of a job down there. He's a great defensive mind. They're always physical. They've always got a big front. Last year, and they were returning Kyle Monunga, that number 5, that running back. That guy is so good. He ate Tech's lunch. He stole the lunch pail defense and ate our lunch.
He did.
That guy
at Lane
so
Stadium.
Good. Yeah.
And, you just get embarrassed on your home field.
Yeah.
And that always hurts.
It does.
And, and then you get beat, and then you go into the Miami game with no momentum.
None.
You lose 2 games, and with this Miami game, I think we matched their competitiveness. I think we played good overall. Our D-line stepped up, and we had Ward pressured. Most of the season, he was able to stand in the pocket for, it seemed like, minutes.
Yeah.
And pick and choose who he wanted to throw to.
Yeah.
But our D-line really had him pressured.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned before in the beginning of the video, they got behind our secondary.
Yeah.
And our coverage was blown.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, we gave up a few big plays. And that's what ultimately led to our demise.
Yeah, we come to that game, and that a lot of Tech fans were sick and tired of slow starts. We had slow starts 3 out of our first 4 games. We had a slow start at Vandy, get down big. We go to Old Dominion. We go to and play Marshall. We have a slow start there. We win that game, but still a slow start. Old Dominion, we finally start pretty decently fast, but it's Old Dominion. You go to Rutgers, another slow start, get down big early. And we go to Miami. We force the turnover early. We get points up on the board early, and I felt like we were finally playing the kind of ball that, we had wanted to see all year.
Right.
Kyron stepped his game up, and then, like Nate said, our safeties, our safeties just, it's like they didn't know where the ball was.
Right.
Miami had some really good receivers, and you have Cam Ward. I mean, the guy he was the best quarterback in the nation. I'm going to just say he's the best quarterback in the nation, and he was doing what he done. We got pressure in his face, but when you have guys streaking down the field wide open, that's ultimately one of the biggest things that hurt Tech this year was we were giving up big chunk plays every single game, missed assignments, missed coverage, and you can't do that. If you want to have a winning record, you can't give up, 3 or 4 big chunk plays that take no time off the clock, especially against a team like Miami.
Right.
And
there at the end, I believe it was 28-24.
Yeah.
And Drones gets us to maybe about the 30. And, it all comes down to the call.
Yeah.
It was a catch.
Yep.
I mean, it was a catch. I think a lot of people have, different opinions on it. But when you're the 7th ranked team in the country, I feel like you get that call.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was indisputable evidence to overturn it.
No, there wasn't.
That would have changed our season. And, I have no other words. It was a catch.
It was definitely a catch. And again, we talk about, the whole Tucker Holloway effect. If he had been playing and, those 2, you take away those two failed punt.
Yeah.
Those 2 failed punts, with the double zeros and the fumble by Jay Lane.
Yeah.
4-0 versus 4-0, probably 2 ranked teams.
Right.
I don't think that they go out of their way to overturn that. I think that the call would stand.
Yeah.
But you just look at that, and there's several things. And another thing that you think of is you miss the 2-point conversion.
Right.
You miss the 2-point conversion right there. Who lets that up? Parker Clemens. Gets blown up. It was here's my thoughts, and I don't know about you, Nate, but you got the Moore brothers. You got Brody Meadows.
Yeah.
And you got a guy like daggone Kyron Drones, about 240 pounds, about the same build as Jalen Hurts. If I'm going for 2, by gosh, I'm doing a tush push.
That's right.
And we did it a couple times with him, and
it worked.
We were successful.
Yeah.
Put daggone Benji Gosnell, because that guy will run through a brick wall for Virginia Tech.
I love
football.
Benji.
Love that guy. You put him back there, and you put your big boys in there.
Yeah.
And just push him. That's how you're going to go for 2.
And I think, we cannot be timid. I think when we had the personnel that we did, like you said, we have to be physical.
Yeah.
And we can't be timid and, go east and west. You got to go north and south.
Tried playing cute ball too much,
Right.
Nate, and it was just didn't work in our favor. Just
Right.
go out there and be mean. Don't try and tiptoe and be sweet and
Right.
princess. Be the more physical team.
Right.
That's my thought, and I felt like, I think that we should have just kicked the extra point because you got a guy like John Love who's automatic. But I'm thinking in that situation, if you are going for two, by gosh, it's
line it up and run the football.
Nut up or shut up.
That's
time
right.
Is what
Yeah.
Coach Stone would tell. Nut
That's
up
right.
or shut up, son, and get up there and run the dang ball. What like Hokie Nation says, stick it in.
Stick it in.
We should have stuck it in right there, and
That would have been a huge momentum shift.
what a huge momentum shift right there.
And I mean, we aren't calling the plays, but like all of us at Hokie Nation, we want to see our team do good.
Yep.
and-
Special teams hurt us. That was the third game,
Yep.
and all three losses.
And
Special teams
that
hurt
makes
us.
you think, what is the identity of Virginia Tech these days?
Yeah.
Because back in the day, Beamer ball was huge. Our
Yep.
special teams was our best team
Yeah.
on the field. Offense and defense, were solid, but our special teams won us ball games.
Yeah, special teams can either make you or break you in some
Yep.
games, and I felt like I said, we got three examples right there. We got the extra point, we got the fumble Rutgers ball, and then we got the double zeros, and all three of those ended up being losses, and you can all blame on special teams. Another quick little snippet is John Love, our guy, kicked a huge field goal against Miami.
Yep.
There's also another two number 17s because John Love was
I
17.
seen that. Yep.
Cole Nelson 17.
Nelson.
How we didn't get called for that, I don't know.
And
But,
that would have been the most embarrassing moment.
I think Stu
Getting
Holt.
caught twice.
Yes, Stu Holt. I think would have gotten ran out of Blacksburg,
I
which
think so.
I'm surprised he's still there. But that's all I'm gonna say on that. Don't say nothing nice. Don't say
Right.
nothing if you can't say nothing nice.
That's right. Just going into Stanford, all the way in California.
Yeah.
I don't have much to say about this game. I think we showed up, kicked their tail. I think it was just very low energy.
Yeah.
Coming off the Miami game, your heart's taken out of your chest.
Mhm.
Then you got to go all the way across the country and
Yeah.
play a team that barely had any fans in the crowd.
Yeah.
But, it shows that we can travel well.
Yeah.
Even though we lost the Miami game, we still played well. And going across the country to Stanford, proving everybody that you're not a joke. And
Yeah.
you showed up and played well.
I felt like, that game, I felt like we were just, we were like, this is time. This is our time. We were
Yeah.
going to take it because, you only have one ACC loss. And again, we just went out there and, that game, I felt like that was the best we played in a win up to that point. I think
Right.
that we played 4 quarters of football.
Yeah.
We played good on defense, played good on offense, and played good on special teams.
Yeah.
And, it was just all around, it was a great game. And, but no, Stanford has no fans. It was like, I was looking at tickets, and I think that I could have gotten a Stanford ticket for like $6.
Yeah.
It's like pretty much you can see it anywhere. So,
All them smart people be like, there's a football game going on today.
yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. It was a good win, though. It was a good win.
And then, coming back to Lane, Boston College, we were both there. First, I want to say the orange uniforms are absolutely fire.
Fuego.
I love them.
Love them.
I love them. I love that we switch it up. But in the first half, we scored 28 points.
Yeah.
And that's not the Virginia Tech that we're used to.
No.
We're used to slow starts,
Yeah.
maybe, making a play at the end of the game. But we come out hot, 28 points in the first game. I think Tootin had his best game all year.
Oh, yeah. Well, he set the single game rushing record for Virginia Tech. And you think of some of the names that's been through Tech. You got David Wilson. You got Michael Orr. You got Khalil Herbert. You got Lee Suggs. You got Kevin Jones. You got, the list goes on.
That's
And,
elite company.
that is elite company. And he goes and he sets the record. He's running people over. He's running through people. And you go back and, hey, listen, I'm going to sing this guy's praises all day long. 2 of Tootin's biggest runs that game. Guess who was a pulling tackle? Johnny
Garrett.
Garrett. Him and Brody Meadows, man, they were, and Xavier Chaplin, the Moore brothers, played exceptional that game.
Absolutely.
I felt like that game, our offensive line really came and then, hey, you can't forget about the 4-sack game by APR.
That's right. He had a outstanding game. I mean, he was ever 5'2", was all over the quarterback.
Yes.
And, we go into that Boston College game thinking this quarterback, is mobile.
Yeah.
But, to be able to get to the quarterback and to really submit APR's name, into that elite company for pass rushers, that's really what
Thomas
set it apart.
Castellanos had nightmares, I guarantee you. Because you got to think, after that game, Thomas Castellanos gets benched.
Yep.
And Boston College just, they don't do well at Lane.
Right.
But, I was thinking, Boston College, after week 2 when Boston College beat Florida State, I was thinking, oh, crap. We had just lost to Vandy, beat Marshall, but was not a very convincing win. You see Boston College, and they're doing good.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh, gosh, Boston College, they bring in a guy – who's coached at the NFL level, who has been absolutely good. He worked with Brady, then he goes down to the Texans, and I know everybody gives him a hard time for doing the Deshaun Hopkins trade, and that's what got him fired. But I mean, he is a heck of a coach.
Yeah.
Comes down there, Castellanos is playing great, and I'm thinking we might lose. Then Tech comes up and momentum is back. We have a great win against Stanford, great win against Boston College on a Thursday night, prime time. Tootin goes off, APR goes off. I'm thinking, Tech might be back.
We got the ball rolling.
We got the ball rolling.
And then we go to Georgia Tech, and really it was a defensive game. It wasn't a light show. It was a defensive game. I think our defense stepped up. I think Cavante Jennings, number 7, really played great.
Yeah.
And that game, Drones, the first play, first score, Jalen Lane does the reverse, and he throws a touchdown to Drones. It shows his versatility.
Yeah.
And he also rushed and threw for a touchdown.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, Georgia Tech, I was at that game, and that was, again, it felt like just old school ball because Georgia Tech had their backup quarterback. Kyron Drones, you could tell he wasn't as mobile as he normally was.
Right.
And come out to, they came out later and said that he was hurt that entire Georgia Tech game. But it was an old school, just, a good old clean fashion ball game.
Right.
And, it was just tough and just one man's going to be left standing. It ain't going to be lights and smoke. It's just going to be good old clean defensive football. And that's what it was. And we came out with the win. And, at this point, we were 3-1 in the ACC. And, I'm thinking, hey, we got a chance. We really got a chance. I thought that, we got a chance to maybe salvage the season and, maybe make a run at the ACC championship. I was feeling pretty good at this point because I thought that Georgia Tech was a big win because at the beginning of the season, I thought that, you got Syracuse and Georgia Tech, and it's at Syracuse. So Tech's always played not good at Syracuse. We got some terrible memories. And Georgia Tech's just one of those games.
You don't know what you're going to get.
It's always close.
Right.
You could have the number 10 ranked Georgia Tech team and a team at Virginia Tech who's been terrible. Going to be close. Or the opposite. Tech's playing great, Georgia Tech's playing awful. It's always a good, close, just a slug-out game. And so I thought that one of those two games that we would win and we were going to lose the other one. And I guess that leads us to Syracuse.
Right. Syracuse really, I don't have many words. Schlee makes his first start because Drones was hurt.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't really get it going. It was fun to watch, but going into Syracuse, I think Delane had a decent game as well.
Yeah.
Keller has a good game. And also, that was the first time we see Pop all year. When that goes back to what I was saying, I think you got to stick to your guns at quarterback. If Schlee, I think you just got to put some confidence in him at that time. We have Pop in our back pocket. But I think we have to stick to our guns, and we didn't.
Yeah.
But
that, in my opinion, worst loss of the year. I think
agree.
that loss right there, it killed our season.
It did.
We had a 17 point lead, and you're thinking, man, this team, we're rolling. We ain't got Tootin, we ain't got Drones.
Yep.
And what the most disappointing thing is that it wasn't the offense that lost us the game. It was the defense giving up big plays. It just seemed like time after time, Kyle McCord was just dicing and slicing our secondary, whether it be the safeties or a cornerback or a star guy who was, out of position. It seemed like just the second half we had checked out and we were all the way down in Blacksburg.
Yeah.
And, the Kyle McCord show came on. And
he lit it up. It's hard. It's hard when we don't have our starting quarterback and running back, to be successful. But I think they came to play that day.
Oh yeah, let's look at how many. I think we put up 31 points. When you put up 31 points with your backup quarterback and your backup running back,
you got to win.
You've got to win. There's no excuse. There is no excuse whatsoever. That game was on. I think that game right there is the game that lost Chris Smart his job. Because here, you think about this. We win that game. We have now won Syracuse, Boston College, Georgia Tech, and Stanford.
Yeah.
That's 4 wins in a row. ACC going to play Clemson at home. And, I think that right there, I don't know. I think that the Clemson game could have been a lot different. I think the Duke game could have been a lot different. I just felt like once we lost that Syracuse game, because going into Syracuse, there was still some hope.
Right.
Tech could make the ACC championship.
Right.
Still because all you got to do is win the ACC championship.
And you're in the playoffs.
There was still some hope that this season was salvageable. Because Vandy had beaten Alabama, and we're thinking, hey, that ain't a bad loss at all.
Right.
Miami.
It makes us look better.
Yeah, Miami at this point was still undefeated, and Rutgers didn't look like a great loss. Rutgers was an okay team, but that was the worst loss out of 3. But you're looking and thinking, this Tech team, we still could make the college playoff. After we gave up a 17-point lead. And it was on the defense, not on the offense. I think that the season ended that day. As bad as I hate to say it.
And it kills your momentum. I think football is a big momentum game. You can get out physical, and it just be a bad day for you. But going into Clemson with our season pretty much, I feel like a lot of guys gave up.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the biggest game, the most anticipated game of the year. Clemson. There was great energy in Lane. We lost 2 picks and a fumble, and it just seemed like we couldn't regain momentum after that.
No, and going into that game, we were a hurt team.
Yeah.
And Drones was hurt, Tootin was hurt, and that stinks. And then Malachi Thomas got hurt against Syracuse as well, but I'm thinking, I look back at that game. Clemson had the worst rush defense in the ACC.
Yeah.
You want to know how many times a running back carried the ball in that game? 1 time.
Yeah.
1 time.
Isn't that crazy?
We had four total carries. The entire game, 4 total carries that weren't sacks. And you look at a guy like Jeremiah Coney. He had ran for 92 yards against Syracuse.
Yeah.
He had proven himself. He's a good running back. And yet, I don't know what it is with this Tech staff. I don't know who gets the call on this, but we like playing hurt players. Schlee played great against that Syracuse game.
Yeah.
And Pry even said it at the end of the year that Drones was still hurt in that Clemson game and that Drones pretty much had to beg him to play. Yeah. And Drones ended up not even getting to finish the game. He was so banged up.
Right.
And another thing is we ran Drones, I think, 10 times in the first half, knowing he was hurt. So I don't get the game plan. I don't get any of it. I look back at that Clemson game, and you know, I think that it was totally. I felt like that was Bowen's worst call game of the year, and
I
it
agree.
makes you go back and wonder who's calling the shots when it is to playing these hurt players. If Tootin's hurt and Drones is hurt, like why play them? I mean, I hate to say it, but if you're only going to give Tootin the ball one time, and if you know that running the quarterback is going to be a huge part in your game plan, don't play the guy who's banged up really badly. Go with the guy. That's why we brought Schlee in.
That's right.
Because he's a veteran guy.
I feel like he could have really got it done.
Yes.
You know, I just don't think you play your hurt quarterback.
No.
I agree with you 100% on that. And that comes down to coaching, I think. You know, we all know Drones can run and do what he can do, but it also speaks to his toughness, you know, wanting to step up in a big game like Clemson. But that's just a toss-up. I mean, do you play your hurt quarterback and risk it, or do you trust your backup? Exactly. I think we'll just eat on that all year.
You know, and that's the thing is, you know, you got a leader like Kyron Drones and a guy who loves the game as much as he does. As bad as I hate to say it, you can't put the decision in their hands.
Right.
Because competitors are going to compete no matter what. At that point, you got to be the coach. You got to be the guy who says, we're going to play him. Because even if we would have lost that game at Clemson and we would have given Drones and Tootin another week to just get healthy, because we have a bye week after that.
Mm-hmm.
We go into Duke, and then maybe Drones isn't hurt. Drones probably gets to start against Duke and is healthy. Same with Tootin. I mean, that right there, playing those two guys and getting them re-injured made us lose the Duke game. I mean, as bad as I hate to say it, because Schlee got hurt. Schlee got hurt in the Clemson game too.
Right.
You know, and then you go to Duke and you got to start Paul. So I don't know.
And I mean, I think Duke, we came out so flat.
Gosh.
I felt like there was no energy. And then we gave up those huge plays to number 4, their receiver. I mean, he was just a dog. He had a Randy Moss-like day.
Yeah, he did.
And I mean, that just watching that guy run down the sideline. I remember we were watching the game together, and we just sat back and we were like, "Oh my gosh, not again!"
Yeah.
Because when you you just have to, you know, understand that it's a new day, new game, but obviously we didn't understand that, and I think a lot of guys gave up, and you just cannot win. You cannot win like that when your guys are down and out. I mean, I know the season isn't going like we thought it would, but that just speaks, you know, the tenacity and effort that the players put in.
Yeah, you know, you look at, I think that one of our all-time lowest moment as Tech fans was Malik Murphy when he threw that second touchdown pass. Him looking right at the ESPN
and
giving the double birds, you know. At that point, you just felt like you have the life sucked out of you. But we came back to where we could have won that game. Like I said, we go down and we make it a one-possession game.
We had 3 picks that game.
Yeah. I mean, we came, and I'll say, the thing about this team is that, I mean, and I got to say this, if you were starting slow game after game, that's not a player problem, that's a coaching problem.
I agree.
That's a coaching problem. And, you know, nothing changes if nothing changes. So I'm glad that we got some staff changing because, again, nothing changes if nothing changes. But this team was resilient, and we gave us a position to win this game. And then you go down and you give Duke the ball because you just score, and you're like, we need one more stop. And we can win this game. We can win this dang thing. And like I said, their running back hadn't done jack crap all game. You know, they were putting up missing posters all over the Duke sideline. Where's our running back at? And what does he do? He goes and runs the ball right down Tech's throat all the way down to the daggone red zone. Big time runs. And thankfully we we force a fumble. But then guess what? We ain't got enough time. We're asking Pop to just sling the ball down there. And they know that he's got to throw it long. And so they bring a lot of pressure. He ends up throwing a pick, which isn't his fault. I mean, he has to again, they're bringing so much pressure because they know he's got to throw it deep. And you blame that on the strength and conditioning. Our guys were just at that point, they they were winded, they were gassed. You could just tell, and you blame it on the defensive coordinator too. And you just look at that game and you think another game of just, man, what if?
What if?
The what if?
I
game.
agree. I mean, for Pop to have his inexperience, I mean, it's hard to expect him to step up and make a play. I mean, but going into the UVA game, they go with Pop, and he turns it around. I think that sets his career up to shine.
Yeah.
I mean, he was having fun out there. It was fun to watch Pop play.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, when your third string quarterback is making plays against your biggest rival, I'm sure he'll never forget that.
No, I mean, that was great. I mean, you've seen some shining Pop moments. You know, the spring game where he had that big long touchdown, and then Duke, he had some good moments. Yeah. Him and Ollie Jennings had a heck of a connection. Yeah. I mean, I'm like, where's this connection been with everybody?
You're like, where has he been?
Yeah, and because Ollie Jennings, man, I felt like that dude should have gotten the ball a lot more.
I feel like Ollie Jennings had the potential to be our number one guy.
Should have been, in my opinion. But,
I love Jalen Lane. I love Felton.
Yep.
But I was looking for more out of Ollie Jennings. And that could just be the opportunities that he was given or not given. But, when he shines like the Duke game, it makes you wonder.
It makes you wonder. And, I mean, you go back and you look at Ollie Jennings. And I know that he dealt with some injuries, and that might have played a little bit. But looking right here, he averaged 24.9 yards a catch. And that is the most on the team by over 6.5 yards.
Yeah.
If a guy is getting 24.9 yards a catch averaging, maybe get him the ball.
Yeah, keep feeding your playmakers. I mean, when somebody's hot, you got to keep feeding them.
It's like every time we get this guy the ball, he is doing something great.
Yeah.
And I just underused. But anyways, going into that UVA game, I ain't going to get down that track because I'm not undigging some of those feelings. But that UVA game, it's bowl game is on the line.
Yeah.
And everybody hates UVA. As much as I was mad at this program, as much as I wanted to not care about this game and be so mad that I didn't even care about it, I still did. And it's still good to beat.
We still got to beat UVA,
We still got to beat you. We are still the flagship program of the state.
We run this state.
Yeah.
Right here. We run this state.
UVA. Now, they are terrible, and they will always be little brothers.
Can't stand them.
Can't stand. So it was great to watch our third quarterback doss him up, and he
was having fun out there, man.
It tickled me to death because that Calandria guy, he was their quarterback. They benched him for who knows what. I mean, he actually worried me because the kid was actually a decent player, to be a true sophomore.
Yeah.
And he's over there on the bench to who knows who. Musket, I think, was the guy's name.
Yeah, number 7.
And, you're watching Pop, and Pop made these big throws, and for some reason it was cutting into Calandria. And it's like the ex-boyfriend who gets dumped watching his girl that cheated on him get cheated on. He's like, yes, kind of rooting for the bad guy,
That's funny, man.
And it was great. It was a great night because you think that, hey, even on our worst years, UVA still ain't got a daggone chance.
That's right.
So, that was great. And to make the bowl game, I felt like that was good as well.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we got to make a bowl game.
Got to make a bowl.
I mean, no matter what happened in the season, we have to make a bowl game.
That starts back up the streak of 2 bowl games in a row, which obviously
recipes the streak.
That's not going to be. I don't want that to be the standard. It's 6-6. Nobody does.
No.
But we got to let a lot of young guys get some more practice because we had so many opt out and so many transfer. We got to let a lot of young guys like your Pop Watson, like your Quentin Reddish, like your Emmett Laws, like your Keelan Adams and Chance Wiggins. You got to let these guys get more practice. So it's always good to be playing, even if you're not playing for much. It's still good to be playing. And we got a lot of extra practicing because our game wasn't till January.
Definitely.
So
and just going in So let's talk about the Duke Mayo Bowl.
Oh, Mayo Bowl.
What were your thoughts, man?
Man, I'd say at first it was a great time. Me and Nate had a great time down there.
We saw some Hokie alumni.
Yeah, got to meet the Holyfield brothers. You know,
Daxton.
Super nice guys.
Super nice.
Cool as crap. You know, I'd like to hang out with them guys in the afternoon. You know, I'd say that they're pretty fun to hang out with. We got to sit right in there behind with all the
family section.
Family section. So that was cool, and you know, it was just, you know, I think that I wasn't looking for Tech to necessarily win.
Yeah. I
was just looking for us to have spots and bright moments to look forward to next year.
Right.
And I thought we had that. You know, us, especially with, you know, guys like, I thought Emmett Laws played great. Keelan Brody Adams, I mean, he had that huge 42-yard run, had a good catch. And, you know, I felt like we gave ourselves the opportunity to win. We had two terrible back-to-back missed pass interference calls. And Brent Pry gets fired up. I got fired up because, you know, that. But, you know, I felt like we had the chance to win, that's all I cared about. And we had some bright moments, which is what I was wanting to see from some young guys. So made me excited.
Yeah. I think we just lost a battle up front.
Yeah, we did.
You know, on the offensive, defensive line, it seemed like Pop had no time. And he was just, you know, kind of rushing his reads.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't able to do what he was supposed to do. And then we switched to Schlee.
Yeah.
And, you know, Colin Schlee's last college football game, I think you give him the reins.
Yeah.
I think he's proven himself over the season. And, you know, if he's making plays, obviously it's a bowl game and it's Minnesota. But in that situation, I think you stick with Schlee. Can't do anything about it now.
No.
But,
you know, and I think that, you know, there's probably some things that going into, well, we're bringing Pop back or not Schlee. But, you know, Schlee he was a veteran presence in the pocket there, you know. And, again, we're starting a walk-on freshman at center. Yeah. Our offensive line is mixed and matched. You know, just felt it was just pitiful. You know,
it was kind of hard to watch.
Yeah,
I mean, their big receiver number 11, he was just making plays.
Oh,
and they just look like a pro team. I mean, the stature of all the guys, we just were outmatched. Outmatched and outgunned. And
we were, but thankfully it wasn't anything like the Pinstripe Bowl. You know, we had a couple years. Maryland just killed us. But I felt like, you know, honestly watching the Mayo Bowl game and realizing that a lot of these guys were third stringers and freshmen out there playing. And you look at that team and you look and say, Tech could have won this game. Like, it's not like, hey, blow us out like completely out of the water. We could have won this game.
Right.
You take away 2 or 3 plays and we win this game.
Yeah.
And you look at that and you're thinking, man, that's with our third string guys. And Minnesota had almost everybody playing. They had most of their starters playing.
Yeah.
And the good 7-5 ball club team, you know, lost to Ohio State, Penn State.
And the Big Ten's a tough conference.
Yeah, tough. And they were a lot better than what their record showed.
Yeah.
I think we played that close with them. I think it was just more. It also just added to that disappointment of, man, if our guys can hang with this team, our third string guys can hang with this team, you know, if we would have had our regular team, we could have killed them, you know, in my opinion. But
I mean, it's kind of hard to watch. I mean, not the way you want to end the season, but a lot to look forward to next year. We appreciate you guys watching. If y'all just want to like and subscribe, we'll get this posted on all major platforms. We just appreciate you.
Appreciate you guys. Go Hokies. Looking forward to the spring game, and we got some big guests we're going to be bringing on. So you guys stay tuned. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to share, tell a friend, bring them in. We're just ready to grow this thing.
That's right.
We appreciate you guys.
We appreciate y'all. God bless and go Hokies.
God bless and go Hokies.